Hey, I'm Coach Marcus at Pink Sock Endurance Coaching. Welcome to my channel.
Hey, so welcome to Pink Sock Endurance Coaching's How to Swim Faster video. So basically, I thought I'd put together a video for all the swimmers out there who are jumping in the pool and with no real plan, don't have any specific target paces, and they're just jumping in and doing continuous swims or broken kilometers, 100-meter reps and so on and so forth, but don't really have a target pace to aim for. So the purpose of this video is just to explain really what you can do to gauge your target paces, so what you should be swimming at when you jump in a pool and you have 100-meter reps to do or 200-meter reps to do. How do you know what pace you should be swimming those at? So in this video, I'm basically going to talk about your critical swim speed. So it's the swimming equivalent of your threshold pace or your lactate threshold. So by using your critical swim speed in your sessions, you know that you're going to be targeting threshold or around about threshold pace. So once you know what pace that you need to swim at, you can do a session once a week, retest every 4 to 6 weeks, and then obviously as time goes on, you can just retest every 8 weeks once you settle into a program. And because you're doing the same session each week as one of your sessions, and you're retesting every 4 to 6 weeks initially and then every 8 weeks, the marginal gains that you're making can be measured. And by measuring those gains and retesting after each block of training, you'll slowly see that you'll get quicker and quicker. So it's really important to have some kind of structure to your sessions, but also have a metric that you understand so you can see your improvement rather than just jumping in the pool and just swimming hard or easy or whatever. So in this video, we're going to talk about critical swim speed, which is your CSS, and is your swim's equivalent of threshold pace. Let's jump straight in. What is CSS? So as I've said, it's your threshold pace, or your swim's equivalent of threshold pace, and it's the pace that you would be able to maintain if you were race fit in a race for around about 1,500 meters. So it's an endurance pace, and it is sustainable for quite a duration. So 1,500 meters is a long swim. It's probably somewhere around about 8 out of 10 effort, 7.5 maybe out of 10 effort. So again, not an easy pace, but it's comfortably hard. So a pace you could sustain in a race for around about 1,500 meters. Why should you use in training critical swim speed? So like I said a minute ago, if you're using this as a metric, you've got something that you can monitor and you can use week after week, month after month to gauge your progress. So you've got something real that you can use and you can see those performance gains. So how do you find out what your critical swim speed is? So in order to have or to understand what your pace is, you need to do a test. So the test itself, or the session, what I would recommend is jump in the pool, and you're going to do, to start with, a 400 meter, and again this can be meters or yards, but for the purpose of this video we're going to talk it in meters. So you're going to do a 400 meter warm-up to start with, and I want you to break that down into 4 times 100 meters. So you'll jump in the pool, you'll do the first 100 meters at around about 5 out of 10 effort. Then you'll take about, I don't know, around about a 15-second recovery. And then you'll do the second 100, around about 6 out of 10. A little bit of recovery. The third 100 at 7 out of 10. And then the final 100 at about 8 out of 10 effort. So that final 100-meter effort that you'll do will be somewhere around your critical swim speed, which you don't know what it is yet, but it's somewhere around your threshold pace. So that's part one of the warm-up done. Take a couple of minutes recovery just to prepare yourself for the second part of the warm-up. And for the second part of the warm-up, all I want you to do is a 50-meter effort, somewhere around about 9 to 9.5 out of 10 effort. So it's a hard effort, almost max. So almost a max effort, 50 meters. You'll then take a few minutes recovery to make sure you're well recovered, and then you'll repeat that again. So you'll then do a second 50-meter effort, around about 9.5 out of 10 effort, almost a max effort. That's the warm-up. So once the warm-up's done, then take some recovery so you feel ready to race a 400-meter time trial. So if you need 2, 3, 4 minutes, if you want to put 100-meter of an easy swim and then take 2 or 3 minutes or 4 minutes recovery, just to mentally prepare yourself for the time trial, then do so. So that's the warm-up finished. For the test, the first part of the test is a 400-meter time trial. So you're going to swim 400 meters as hard as you possibly can based on your current fitness. But ideally, you want each of those 100 meters to be progressively faster. So the advice that I would give is don't go out too hard, because obviously you've had some recovery. You can go off harder than you think you can, and before you know it, you'll blow up. So don't go out too hard, settle into the pace and break it down into 4 times 100. So when you go through that first 100, somewhere around about 7.5-ish towards 8 out of 10 effort, so somewhere around threshold pace. After you've done that first 100, ask yourself, can I maintain this pace for the whole 400 meters? Or can I pick the pace up slightly? So after the first 100, ideally, we want to pick the pace up a little bit. And again, in swim terms, we're only talking a few seconds per 100. Once you get to the 200-meter mark, again, you're now at the halfway point. Every meter swam after this point, you're nearing the end. So again, can I maintain this till the end? Can I pick the pace up? Once you hit 300 meters, you know you're 3/4 of the way through, and now is the time to really start saying, just give everything you've got, start picking that pace up, and just know that you're going to finish really, really strong. That last 100 meters should really now start being 9, even a 9.5 out of 10, and that last 50 meters, just empty everything you've got. That should really feel almost a flat out effort. So once you've done that 400-meter time trial, make sure you record that time on your watch, because you'll need that later. And that's the first part of the swim test done. Take a few minutes recovery. If you want to do 100 meters really gentle swimming, by all means do so. But just make sure you feel fully recovered before you start the second and final part of the test. So for some people, 2 to 3 minutes, some people might need 5 minutes, whatever you think you need to feel fully recovered from that 400-meter effort, just take that amount of time, gentle swimming in between the recovery if you want, and then get ready on your watch, ready to record the second part of the test. So the second part of the test is a 200-meter time trial. Now, the purpose of the 200-meter is to swim each of those 100-meter splits within that 200 meters faster than the splits that you did on the 400-meter test. So it's really important, absolutely crucial for this calculation to work, to make sure that the 100-meter split times in this 200-meter time trial are faster than what you did on the first part of the test for the 400-meter split, because ultimately you're only swimming half the distance. So knowing that, you should be able to push harder. So the 200-meter time trial set out around about 8.5 out of 10 effort. First 100 meters, again, you're just picking up that pace and just settling into that rhythm, and it should feel pretty hard. Once you go through that first 100 and you know that you're halfway through, now is the time to start picking the pace up and start really going for it. So when you go through 150 meters with just 50 meters left, you're giving it absolutely everything you've got to make sure you swim these hundreds, these 200s faster split times than that first 400. So once you finish that 200, again, make sure you record that time because you'll need it later. So that is the CSS test. So you've done a 400 meter time trial and a 200 meter time trial. So you'll need that data to find out what your critical swim speed is. But before we go away and look at the data, just make sure that once you've done this test, you do a nice, gentle, easy swim down after the test, just to make sure you're nicely loosened up. So just jump in the pool, stay in the pool and do a 300 meter or even a 400 meter. Really, really easy swim, just to loosen off and make sure you cool down and bring that heart rate down. So that's the test done. So the next stage, what you need to do is go on to the SwimSmooth website, and I'll put a link in the description below, but it's basically on swimsmooth.com. And they've got a section on there which is a calculator to calculate your critical swim speed. So you can choose the pool length that you used, and that could have been a 25 meter pool, a 50 meter pool if you were doing a long course, or even if you were using a 25 yard pool, for example. There's a few different options. But like I said, for the purpose of this, I've done it in meters. So you could have done this in a 25 meter or a 50 meter pool. So choose what size of pool you used, and then populate the data fields where you'll enter your 400 meter time trial time and your 200 meter time trial time. Once those fields are populated, you click calculate, and underneath it will give you your CSS pace per 100 meters. So for example, someone who swam 6 minutes for their 400 meter time trial and then went on to do a 2 minute 55 for their 200, that gives a CSS pace of 1 minute 33 seconds per 100. So that is that person's critical swim speed. So 1 minute 33 seconds, and that's the important thing to remember, your CSS pace per 100 meters. So once you've got that data, you've got the amount of seconds you should be swimming when doing your CSS sets or your threshold sets, and you can break that down. So obviously, however many seconds it is, you can divide that down by the number of the size of the pool. So if your critical swim speed at 1:33 is 93 seconds, you can divide that down by 4 to give you a 25 meter time. So you know how many seconds it should take you to swim 25 meters. Again, if you're in a 50 meter pool, you can divide that by 2 to give you your 50 meter swim time, and you know every 50 meters you should be hitting that time. So that is CSS pace, and that is the test, and that is how you find out what your CSS pace is. So how do you use that? So you've now got this time that you know that in your CSS and your threshold sets, you should use that, but how do you use it? What do the sessions actually look like? Well, obviously this is down to the individual, and it does depend on the kind of swim times that you're capable of, because obviously you don't want to do too much. So if you're only swimming for like 1500 meters in your training sets at the moment, you don't want to go and put a critical swim speed set together that's like 3K, because you'll just end up getting massively fatigued, overtrained, and you'll suffer for it. So you don't want to do more than what you're already doing. So just a couple of example sessions. For someone who's swimming their 400 in around 8 minutes, you could do something like 6 times 200 meters for your main session with 20 seconds of recovery between each. Or you could do something like 12 times 100 meters with just 10 seconds recovery between each. Now, the real important thing there is, firstly, you want to be trying to hit that target CSS pace as close as possible. It might not be perfect in respect of the calculation isn't always absolutely spot on, but this should feel somewhere around about an 8.5-ish out of 10 effort. Certainly for the first few weeks after your test, because this is going to be new to you and you're not going to be used to probably swimming at this kind of pace. So there's going to be a few weeks of adaptation that needs to take place. If you swim somewhere between sort of 6:20 and 8 minutes for your 400, then you could increase the total volume. So you might do 8 times 200 with 20 seconds, or you could potentially do 15 times 100 with the 10 seconds recovery. It's also really important to maintain those recoveries. So if you remember, this is supposed to be challenging and it's your threshold pace. So there's no point jumping in the pool and say, right, I'm going to do 15 times 100, and the plan says to only have 10 seconds recovery. And then between each of those sets, you end up taking 30 seconds or 45 seconds recovery. It's just not going to work. So it's really important as important as the pace to maintain the recoveries. So like I said, if you're only doing 100-meter efforts and multiples of the hundreds, then you really only want between 10 and 15 seconds of recovery between each effort. As you step up to say 200-meter repeats, then the recovery can step up with it to around about 20 to 25 seconds and so on and so forth. Now, if you're the type of person who's swimming faster than 6:15, so anyone who's swimming faster than 6:15 for their 400, again, from a volume point of view, you can increase this volume. So for you, you might find that you'll end up doing something like 10 times 200 with the 20 seconds recovery, or you may even end up doing something like 20 times 100 with 10 to 15 seconds recovery. So that's a few example sessions and how you can use your CSS and the type of session that you can do. And like I said at the beginning of the video, once you start doing this session, try and do this session once a week and pick one that works for you. So if you pick and say, right, well, I currently swim, I swam the 400 in 6 minutes. So I'm going to do a session now, which is 20 times 100 meters. And I'm going to give myself 15 seconds recovery, right? So that's the session. Try and do that session at least, well, not at least, but try and do that session once a week. So by doing the same session every week, you're going to allow your body to adapt to that intensity and that volume. And after the first 4 to 6 weeks, retest yourself. So after you've done this for 4 to 6 weeks, redo that CSS test and see if there's been any change. And if you've not done structured training on a regular basis, you'll probably find that you'll already see some improvement. So you'll probably swim that 400 slightly quicker. You'll probably swim the 200 again, progressively slightly quicker. And by putting that data back into the CSS calculator, you should find that your CSS pace is now faster. Once you've got that data again, you can repeat it over that cycle of 4 to 6 weeks. But as the training progresses and your body becomes more accustomed at swimming at threshold pace, you might find realistically that you probably only need to test this every 8 to 12 weeks. But again, just see how it goes. But the main important thing is that you do this regular swim session at least once a week at threshold pace and test every so often. So don't just set this pace and forget about it, because as your body gets used to it, ultimately you're going to be able to push harder. But if you're not retesting and you're still swimming at this same pace, ultimately you're going to plateau. So it's really important to keep testing. That is basically it. So obviously don't make this your only swim session a week. I truly believe that with most sports, they say 2 to maintain, 3 to improve. So if you're only swimming twice a week, you're probably going to maintain your swim fitness, although adding some structure in, you should see some improvement, but then there'll be a plateau. So I do believe that ideally you want to try and fit 3 swims in per week. At least one of them, make it a threshold session. A second session, you want to build up some endurance. So that might mean where you just get in the pool for half an hour and just swim for 30 minutes, a nice comfortable pace just to build some endurance. You don't necessarily need to do too much speed work because the threshold sets really do help develop that. But again, if you want to jump in the pool and do some speed work, some shorter intervals, by all means do so. And obviously, if you want to work on technique, by all means do so. Open water swimming, if you're an open water swimmer and you want to do open water specific drills, like sighting and so on and so forth, again, but just make sure you do this threshold session, ideally at least once a week. So that's it. That is hopefully how you can become a faster swimmer by training smart. So if you've enjoyed this video, sorry it's another long one, but if you've enjoyed it, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because that really helps me out and I can keep providing content. And please do leave comments below. If you agree with what I'm saying, if you disagree, if you've got any feedback on when you've done your test, just drop me a line and yeah, we'll get in touch. But yeah, thanks for watching. And as always, happy swimming. Take care, guys.